class today, what we'll do is we'll finish with perception, which we started yesterday. And so what was perception? As I said, perception is what you and I think is reality. Perception is what your consumer thinks is reality. And a quick recap of what we have done till now. We started by understanding what is marketing. We went ahead, we understood the journey of marketing. We further went ahead, we understood macro and micro environment. We understood telemarketing, rural marketing. And then we went ahead and understood segmentation, targeting, positioning. And then when we thought, are we ready to now make the product and do the promotion, pricing, and distribute it, we realized, hey, we've been saying all the time that marketing is meeting the needs of the customer profitably, but how do I define the needs? And therefore, the first thing which we did was to understand perception, because we will understand the needs by perception, motivation, learning. And the first thing we did was perception. We started with that yesterday. And what was perception? Perception is what you and I think is reality. In short, what your consumer thinks is reality. And for that, we saw different videos where we realized that reality may be a lot of components, but as a human being, I only see so much. What is it that your consumer is seeing? And therefore, the next question was that how do we ensure that the consumer develops the right perception, or how do we develop the perception? So, three things. First, we select the stimuli. In this case, the stimuli may be the communication from the company or the packing of the product, whatever, something which catches our eye. We organize our thoughts around it, and then we do an interpretation. And when it came to organizing the thoughts, we spoke about nano. I also showed you the example of Tanishq, that how people organize thoughts around what is communicated to them, right? And that's where we ended the class yesterday. So now that I go forward, I come back to positioning, which we discussed in segmentation, targeting, and positioning. What was positioning? Positioning was the image created in the mind of the consumer. So what is positioning? Positioning is the perception created in the mind of the consumer. And let me explain this more with a beautiful example, which most of us would know, the example of battle between Dettol versus Savlon. So I don't think there must be anyone who does not know what Dettol and Savlon is, but if there is anyone who doesn't know, well, these are antiseptic liquids. So these are very popular antiseptic liquids in our country, and yet they have a very, very different positioning. So let me first share with you. I have some very interesting things from the internet. Let me first share with you the example. So there is this ad of Dettol, which I want to show you.
क्यों तोड़ा बोला? का कुछ खाना होगा। हाँ। क्या है? कदमों में तेरी राहत मिले, आँखों में तेरी झलक है मेरी। पैसे चाहिए तो मुझसे ले लेता ना। आपके बर्थडे गिफ्ट के पैसे आपसे ही लेता।
See how he is putting Dettol and then he is doing this so that there is no jalan, there is no that little tingling sensation which usually comes.
Dettol, अपनों की सुरक्षा के लिए मजबूत सहारा.
So while this was the ad for Dettol, let me show you another ad. And this is for Savlon.
मेरा चार्जर कहाँ है?
ये देखो। अरे क्या हो गया बाबा? अरे आप कैसे गिर गए?
कैथरीन,
रुको, मैं भी इसका इलाज करती हूँ। हाँ? बिना बच्चों जैसा काम करते रहते हो, अभी ठीक हो जाएगा, बिल्कुल फिक्र मत करो। हाँ,
ठीक है, सही बात। आम एंटीसेप्टिक तो ऐसे ही इलाज करता है, दर्द पे और दर्द देकर, इसलिए हम यूज करते हैं सैवलॉन एंटीसेप्टिक, जो जर्म से प्रोटेक्ट करे 8 गुना बेहतर, लेकिन स्किन हील करे प्यार से। सैवलॉन।
Did you see how the difference between Savlon and Dettol? So when we talk about Dettol, usually Dettol is identified with that little tingling sensation and that smell which comes. And how did Savlon position itself? So Savlon says that if you apply Savlon, there is no tingling sensation that happens, and that's how they differentiated themselves, and that's how they positioned themselves. Both are antiseptic liquids, both are pretty popular in the market, and yet the positioning of Dettol is so different. The perception we have of Dettol is so different than the perception we have for Savlon. In fact, there's an article, not an article, the views of someone on LinkedIn, which I want to share with you, which happened during Corona, because one thing during Corona, which all of us wanted in our house, was a lot of antiseptic liquid and antiseptic things, which, because we were perpetually disinfecting everything all the time. Arey dono pe dalo, yahan pe dalo. There was that fear, and Dettol and Savlon and these antiseptic liquids were in huge demand. So this is an observation of someone of what happened during Corona, and he's talking about last year. So let me just share this with you. Yeah, so he says, my father owns a pharmacy and I have been helping him since 14th March 2020 in running the store. I have an interesting observation to share on probably the most sought after thing on medical shops in the coronavirus epidemic, which is an antiseptic solution. Absolutely right. We just all wanted it. And look at this. He says during these 3 hours, we get minimum 15 to 20 requests for antiseptic from 200 to 220 odd customers. Well, is this important? Obviously, this is just for 20 days data that he's sharing. He says almost all the customers just ask for Dettol and no other liquid. He further goes on to talk, and look at this. He says, personally, we have used both the solutions and we feel that both are equally good. He also says that Dettol advertisement puts emphasis on killing 99.99% germs, which he thinks is a gimmick. But he says R&D's marketing team deserves huge respect for making antiseptic categories synonymous with Dettol and convincing people to trust just Dettol. Look at how perceptions work. I mean, an antiseptic liquid most probably is an antiseptic liquid, But the perception we have about Dettol is different from the perception we have about Savlon. So while Dettol used a perception that chot pe dard hota hai, Savlon positioned it differently, and they said, if you use us, chot pe dard nahi hota hai. Right? So again, what is positioning? Positioning is creating an image in the minds of the consumer, and positioning therefore uses perception. So if I want to know what is the perception a consumer have about one product versus another product, is there a way we can do it? Yes, you can. And we do it with the help of something called perceptual mapping. So what is perceptual mapping? Perceptual mapping is when we try to see that what do the consumer thinks about different competitor products. Again, very important, what the consumer thinks, not what you and I think as marketing person, but what the consumer thinks. And we usually, this is how a perceptual map looks. This is a very old perceptual map, but it shows the positioning of various cars in the mind of the consumer. And very interesting. Look at this. Look at BMW. BMW, according to this perceptual map, is classy, distinctive, but it is sporty. On the other hand, Mercedes, according to this perceptual map, is also classy, distinctive. They're almost at the same level. However, it is more towards the conservative side, which means while Mercedes maybe is for slightly elder people, maybe BMW is for more younger people, according to this perceptual map. Now, someone might say, Mercedes might say, hey, this is wrong, or BMW might say, hey, this is wrong, but this is how the consumer perceives it. And therefore, let me take another example. So here, this is a hypothetical example. And we have this perceptual map where we are talking about cleansing powder for cleaning of the fabrics, our clothes. And the two dimensions that we have taken is impact on the fabric and the cleansing power. So on one extreme, you have poor cleansing power. On the other extreme, you have good cleansing power. Similarly, on one extreme, you have gentle impact on the fabric. On the other extreme, you have harsh impact on the fabric. Now, very interesting. Just see that almost all the squares, I mean, all the spaces are filled except the space between gentle impact on fabric and good cleansing power. So what does it mean? That in the market, consumers think that there is no powder which has great cleansing power, and at the same time, it is not harsh on the fabrics also. Now, A, B, and C, three hypothetical products, they did this, they looked at their positioning, and they realized that they're so closely situated. What does it mean when you're so closely situated to your competitor? It means that in the mind of the consumer, you are replaceable. It means that if the consumer goes to the shop and he says, hey, give me brand A, but the shopkeeper says, I'm sorry, brand A is over, he'll say, okay, give me brand B or give me brand C, which is not what as a company I would like. I don't want to be replaceable in the minds of the consumer. I want the consumer to insist on only buying my product, brand, and service. But if I want the consumer to insist on only buying my product, brand, or service, then I need to have a unique positioning. I cannot get lost over there. And then how do I do a unique positioning? What is it that I highlight to the consumer? So maybe some of you would say that maybe A should move in that empty bracket like we have shown in this diagram and say, hey, I am the cleansing powder, which has a gentle impact on fabric and great cleansing power also. Theoretically, absolutely fantastic solution, the ideal solution, the wonderful solution. But do you think if it was that easy, then nobody would have gone in that place? I mean, are you the only genius born? Are others blind who could not see that this place is empty? Maybe that place is empty because it is difficult to be there. Maybe that place is empty because the amount of work and effort required to make the powder reach that particular spot is not worth it, because maybe it will make the powder so expensive that the consumer is no longer interested in buying it, right? What is the reason? Before jumping and saying, let's move to that block, understand what is the reason. There are other geniuses also born before you and after you, and if still that box is empty, what is it that we are missing, right? So theoretically, as I said, maybe that's the solution. Practically, think about it. The important concepts that come out of perception about all that we have done yesterday and today are three important concepts. Number one, selective exposure. What do you mean by selective exposure? So when I'm traveling from my institute to my house, or when you are traveling, there are a number of posts that will come. There are a number of billboards that will come on my way. There are a number of things happening around me. Do I notice everything? No. No, it's just not possible for you or me. We tend to notice only certain things. And which are those things? Those things which consciously or unconsciously we are looking for. Which means that please do not target the entire population for your communication, because you are wasting your time and effort, because consumers give selective attention. I'm really not interested. So in a particular, so for example, if there are people in this world who can afford to have their own planes and so on. It's useless to share that communication with me. It's useless to share that communication with all the people available on this planet Earth, because we may go, wow, oh my God, but it's a wastage of time and effort of that particular company. Please, please give this attention to only those people who are your target segment. But the thing which I really like is perceptual defense. What is perceptual defense? Perceptual defense is, we as human beings, anything that makes us uncomfortable, we just shut ourselves away from it, most of us. I mean, we're not really enthusiastic about going, in an uncomfortable zone. Not all of us are that adventurous. And therefore, anything that makes us uncomfortable, we shut it out. Do not make your consumer uncomfortable. So for example, the only people who stop smoking after seeing this are the non-smokers. No smoker has seen this and said, oh my God, and stopped smoking. Because the smokers do perceptual defense. Hey, this doesn't happen to me. I only smoke 10 cigarettes a day. He smokes 11 cigarettes a day. Hey, this is for you, yeah. That's how we human beings behave, right? So do not take your consumer. So another practical implication for perceptual defense. Sometimes you come up with contests which say, answer this question and you will win a prize, and you put some really, really intellectual hi-fi question. Now, suppose it's a quiz for a washing detergent and you put a hi-fi intellectual question about some space. Hello, what are you doing? Are you trying to tell the consumer that, listen, you're stupid, you don't know anything about space, but I'm not supposed to know. I mean, this is a washing powder. And therefore, the consumer shuts you out. Okay, the moment you take your consumers in uncomfortable zone, they will protect themselves. And what will they do? They will remove you, the product, brand, or service. Because all of us, it's a fact of life that whenever we buy anything, we are dealing with a risk. Yes, when I buy something on an everyday basis, I mean, maybe that risk is very little or that risk is negligible, but somewhere we all have that risk. Every time I'm transferring money, there is that risk. Arey, atak na jai payment. Every time when you are ordering something which you haven't used before, there is a risk. And it's important to help your consumer deal with that risk. Does that risk exist in reality? Maybe yes, maybe not. But if that is why we call it perceived risk. It's a risk perceived by the consumer. It may or may not exist in reality. But if your consumer thinks there is a risk, then there is a risk. And as a marketing person, it's your duty, it's my duty to help the consumer deal with that risk. We don't say, hey, listen, there is no risk. Okay, stop acting like this. Aisa kuch bhi nahi hai. I don't understand this behavior. That's not marketing. We help our consumers to deal with that risk. And how do we help? So consumers, what do consumers do? So when the consumers don't know about something, they acquire additional information. So for example, students who want to join SCMS, if they're not really clear about everything, they want to acquire additional information. And they may acquire it either through the website, or they may acquire it through social media pages, or they may acquire it by talking to the students who are here, with the current students or the alumni. Practical implication, I as SCMS must ensure that all relevant information is available on different platforms. How do consumers deal with risk? Consumer, when he or she is buying a new product or something which they haven't really used before or not aware of, they try to remain brand loyal. So they think, listen, yaar, I have used this brand before. It's a pretty trusted brand. Your product must also be good, right? So why? Because they want to eliminate their risk. Or what do? We buy a popular brand. So what do? We go on Amazon or Flipkart or things. We read the reviews. Oh my God, this product has all good reviews. Or if this product doesn't have good reviews, this is a popular brand, and we go ahead and we buy it. Marketing implication, please watch out for bad reviews or bad information about your product, brand, and service. If it is wrong, please correct it. So you can't be complacent and say, I have created the best possible product on this planet Earth. Ab khareedna hai, kharido, nahi khareedna, mat kharido, koi nahi kharidega, right? A lot of people, they associate quality with money. They think if it's expensive, then it's worth it. And they go ahead and buy it. I mean, again, you may say, hey, listen, I mean, they are just trying to take money from you. Loot rahe hain tumhe. But if a consumer feels that no, quality and pricing go hand in hand together, so be it. They rely on the store image. You know what? That store keeps good products. So if it's available over there, don't worry. You can take it. When it's a lot of times, so what does Amazon say? It says that you can return it within so many days or something like that, because they are trying to assure us that we understand your risk and don't worry. So they give money back guarantee. Or a lot of time what we do, rather than buying that big packet, we buy small packs. Again, marketing implication. Please don't insist that a consumer only has to buy 5 kg. If he wants to buy 1 kg, please make it available. Because you can't say, sir, please use it. It's really good. Yes, that's okay. But let me be convinced by that 1 kg first. Okay. Again, as I said, these risks may or may not exist in reality. But if a consumer thinks that these risks are there, then it is there. And yes, for all of us, whenever we are buying a product, brand, or service, somewhere we all have that perceived risk. The degree of the perceived risk may vary. For something, my perceived risk may be very high. On the other hand, when I'm buying glucose biscuit, my perceived risk may be negligible, but it still exists. Okay, at this point of time, let me come back to you and ask you, is there anything that you haven't understood? Would you like to contribute or say something? Or do you have any questions? You have next 15, 20 seconds. Has everyone understood? Is it clear to everyone? Say yes or no, say something.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if it is clear to everyone, then I would like to stop the class at this point. moment. I would like to stop the class with this topic because with this we complete perception.